There is a disease that affects hundreds of millions of people worldwide, produces almost no symptoms in its early stages, and quietly transitions into one of the deadliest cancers humans face. It is not rare. It is not exotic. It is chronic gastritis, a condition many people have been told to manage with antacids and diet changes, then forget about. If that sounds familiar, this video will change the way you think about what is happening inside your stomach. South Korea, Japan, and Mongolia consistently rank among the countries with the highest rates of stomach cancer in the world. Globally, stomach cancer claims over 1 million new cases and hundreds of thousands of lives every year. And behind almost every one of those cases sits an earlier chapter that was either missed or ignored. That chapter is chronic gastritis. Here is the number that should stop you in your tracks. If stomach cancer is caught early, when it is confined to the inner layers of the stomach wall, the 5-year survival rate exceeds 90%. If it is found in its advanced stages after spreading beyond the stomach, that rate falls to below 10%. The difference between those two outcomes is often simply a matter of whether chronic gastritis was taken seriously before it progressed. To understand why chronic gastritis is so dangerous, you need to understand how it becomes cancer. Scientists have mapped this journey precisely, and it follows a stepwise progression known as the Correa cascade, first described in 1975 and now confirmed by decades of clinical evidence across multiple countries. It begins with a normal, healthy stomach lining. Then comes chronic gastritis, driven by Helicobacter pylori infection, irregular eating habits, alcohol, smoking, chronic stress, and long-term use of anti-inflammatory pain medications. In this stage, the stomach lining is inflamed repeatedly over months or years. The third step is atrophic gastritis. When inflammation is sustained long enough, the normal glandular cells of the stomach lining begin to disappear. The lining becomes thinner, acid secretion decreases, and the protective architecture of the stomach starts to break down. Atrophic gastritis is associated with approximately a 6-fold increase in the risk of intestinal-type gastric cancer, and the risk rises in proportion to how widespread the atrophy is. The fourth step is intestinal metaplasia. This is the stage where damaged stomach cells no longer recover as stomach cells. Instead, they transform into cells that resemble the lining of the small or large intestine. The body essentially installs the wrong type of cells in an attempt to repair the damage. Intestinal metaplasia is associated with up to a 20-fold increase in gastric cancer risk in some studies. The annual progression rate from intestinal metaplasia to cancer is approximately 0.45% per patient per year. Over 10 years, that cumulative risk reaches 4.5%. Over 20 years, it approaches 9%. Incomplete type intestinal metaplasia, a subtype detectable on biopsy, progresses toward cancer significantly faster than the complete type. The fifth and final step is dysplasia, followed by gastric adenocarcinoma. Here is the most critical fact in this entire video. Chronic gastritis and atrophic gastritis can potentially be reversed or halted. Once intestinal metaplasia develops, current medicine cannot fully reverse it. This is not a reason for despair, it is a reason for urgency. The window for meaningful intervention is before step 4 begins. At the center of almost all of this sits one bacterium. Helicobacter pylori infects the stomach and in most people causes no noticeable symptoms. It is deceptive precisely because of that silence. In a study analyzing data from over 300,000 Korean adults, those infected with Helicobacter pylori had a 6.4 times higher risk of developing gastric cancer compared to uninfected individuals. Estimated infection rates in East Asian populations range between 40 and 50% of all adults. That means statistically, 1 out of every 2 people watching this video may be carrying this bacterium right now, without knowing it. The response to this is not fear. It is action, and the science is firmly on your side. Multiple large-scale studies have shown that eradicating Helicobacter pylori through antibiotic combination therapy reduces the risk of developing gastric cancer by approximately 40 to 52%. In people with a family history of stomach cancer who underwent eradication therapy, One study found their gastric cancer risk was 55% lower than a placebo group. Among those in whom eradication was confirmed successful, the risk reduction compared to those with persistent infection reached 73%. Research also indicates that eradication is most effective at preventing cancer when performed before the age of 60 and before atrophic gastritis reaches an advanced stage. There is no good reason to delay this test. Endoscopy is the other pillar of early detection. One study found that people who had undergone gastroscopy within the previous 3 years had a 29% lower mortality rate from gastric cancer. Early-stage stomach cancer caught through routine endoscopy is treated with minimally invasive endoscopic resection, preserving the stomach and carrying a 5-year survival rate above 90%. This is a cancer that regular screening can genuinely catch in time. Doctors recommend that individuals at standard risk begin routine gastric screening at age 40, and those with family history of gastric cancer, known Helicobacter pylori infection, are diagnosed atrophic gastritis should begin earlier and maintain shorter follow-up intervals. Now, what can you do starting today to slow or interrupt this progression? There are several lifestyle changes with a meaningful evidence base. Reducing salt intake is one of the most direct interventions available. High-sodium diets damage the stomach lining directly and are known to amplify the carcinogenic effects of Helicobacter pylori. The countries with the highest gastric cancer rates share high-salt dietary patterns. Keep daily sodium intake below 2,000 mg and reduce pickled, smoked, and heavily processed foods. Stopping smoking is non-negotiable for stomach health. Cigarette smoke reduces blood flow to the gastric mucosa, suppresses mucin secretion, and accelerates the progression from chronic gastritis to atrophic gastritis. People who smoke are significantly more likely to have more severe gastritis and higher Helicobacter pylori activity simultaneously. Limiting alcohol matters more than most people realize. Repeated alcohol exposure directly damages the mucosal epithelium, increases gut permeability, and intensifies inflammatory signaling in the stomach wall. Regular heavy drinking is an independent risk factor for accelerating the transition from chronic gastritis to atrophic gastritis. Stress management belongs in this conversation. Chronic psychological stress drives sustained cortisol release, and cortisol weakens the mucosal defense system, reduces blood flow to the stomach wall, and impairs the protective mucus layer. Sleep deprivation and chronic overwork compound this effect. These are not soft lifestyle factors. They are physiological mechanisms that directly alter your stomach's ability to protect itself. Avoiding routine overuse of nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drugs such as ibuprofen and aspirin is also important. These medications inhibit prostaglandin synthesis in the stomach lining, which directly undermines the mucosal protection system. People who take these drugs frequently for pain management should have their stomach health evaluated by a doctor. Some important safety notes. Everything in this video is health information and does not replace a medical diagnosis or treatment. If you experience persistent nausea, unintentional weight loss, black or tarry stools, vomiting, or a sudden change in your digestive symptoms, see a doctor promptly. Helicobacter pylori eradication therapy involves prescription antibiotics and must be guided by a physician. Antibiotic resistance patterns vary by region and affect which treatment protocol is most appropriate. People who have already been diagnosed with atrophic gastritis or intestinal metaplasia should discuss their personal endoscopic surveillance schedule with their gastroenterologist. Individual responses to dietary and lifestyle interventions vary, and nothing here overrides guidance from your own medical team. If this video helped you, please subscribe and share it with someone who has been told they have chronic gastritis and has been treating it as a minor inconvenience. Leave a comment telling us when you last had a gastroscopy. If you have never had one, let this video be the push. We will see you in the next one.